A new season, a new beginning for cycling. Stage racing for so long a European pursuit is back, American style. What better backdrop for the biggest spectacle in sport than California itself? From the bay and iconic hills of San Francisco, through the noble vineyards, along the Pacific coast, and into the urban center of Southern Cal. The stage is set for the biggest thing on two wheels this side of the continent. American stars trying to win their nation's biggest contest are set to challenge the world. And a world champion who has come to sample American racing at its finest. The prelude is a prologue, an individual race against the clock that climbs to the pinnacle of the city by the bay. The Amgen Tour of California begins today in San Francisco. Next.
Welcome to the Amgen Tour of California, without a doubt the best bike race in the history of American cycling. We've assembled the finest field of athletes ever on U.S. soil, world champions, yellow jersey wearers, and classics winners, as well as Grand Tour champions as well. As good as this field is, it would not be complete without the best team in commentating history and the voices of the Tour de France. Ladies and gentlemen, Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwin.
Thanks very much, Bob. What a beautiful day it is, everybody, because, yes, we're in San Francisco. The skies are blue. We do have a great field, as Bob has said, and we're looking forward to 8 days now of real good cycling. Here's some of the notables. We've seen them: Leipheimer, Juli Horner, all Americans, Paolo Bettini, the world champion, George Hincapie, he'll look to get one over in the time trial, I think. Basso is back, a big debut for him. Zabriskie, Michael Rogers, a good time trialist, Tommy Danielson and Michael Rasmussen. Well, there are the riders. There are only some of the names, Paul. We could be talking about the start of the Tour de France here.
It really is quite remarkable. I have to say, at the team presentation just the other night, Phil, everybody was cheering for Paolo Bettini. It really is quite remarkable to know that when you come here to the Amgen Tour of California, we have the reigning world road race champion, Paolo Bettini. He's also the Olympic champion from Athens. It's phenomenal to have him here. And also the reigning world time trial champion, Fabian Cancellara. He's going to be a tough man to beat when we go right down towards the end in the individual time trial. Bob, apart from those two Italians who got a great crowd, a great cheer from the crowd, what about the Americans?
The Americans have brought the strongest field ever in a bike race here on domestic soil. Levi Leipheimer, winner of the Prologue last year. Big George Hincapie. Discovery let this very big race slip out of their hands last year. I think they want to reverse that and get the win in one of the biggest races on their calendar throughout the whole season, all races included, especially the Tour de France. This is the best way to start the season at the Amgen Tour of California. Watch for Discovery to try to win this race.
All right, well, there's some of the riders. Now let's have a look where we're going to race over the next 8 days of cycling. This is a slightly changed course to last year. It's a very competitive route indeed. Let's have a look with Paul.
This year's Prologue will take the same route as last year's. A total of 2 miles. The riders will start at the Embarcadero and finish beneath the Coit Tower. Stage 1 begins in Sausalito, where the riders will briefly enter Highway 101 and travel 97 miles to Santa Rosa, where the finish circuit will feature a series of nasty turns. Santa Rosa to Sacramento will make up the 116-mile second stage, with a course that consists of a ride through the scenic Napa Valley wine country ending up in Capitol Park. Stage 3 starts from Stockton, where the riders will embark on a difficult 95 miles, making their way through the narrow and winding Calaveras Road and arriving in front of San Jose City Hall. The next day we encounter the heart of the Tour, a stretch of 133 miles of the world's most scenic coastline. Beginning in Seaside, the peloton may face rapid and extreme weather conditions along the Pacific Ocean before arriving in San Luis Obispo. We stay put in the Danish town of Solvang for the individual time trial. 14.5 miles featuring the climb through Ballard Canyon Road and ending with a narrow and twisty descent. Stage 6 begins our tour of Southern California with a 105-mile ride from Santa Barbara. Heading inland on Highway 126, the race finishes with a ride through the Santa Clarita Valley. The final stage of the Tour of California ends with a circuit race along the shores and harbors of Long Beach, where this year's winner will have conquered 600 miles of California's natural beauty. The final day will be a grueling 10-lap test around the city.
Yes, that's where we're going over the next week. I think we're in the warmest part of the United States right now, and we're all set for a sunny ride. Bob, you were here last year. It was a good race then. This one, I think, is going to have the drop on it.
Absolutely spectacular scenery for the Amgen Tour of California. There's no doubt about that. I think the time trial in Solvang is what's going to define this race. A couple of climbing stages, but watch for the time trialists to really shine here.
Yeah, well, Phil, what I think is the organisation this year have done a very clever job in what they've done. They've actually put all of the excitement down towards the end to keep the suspense in this year's Amgen Tour of California. With the time trial down towards the end, it's going to be a lot more difficult. And then to back it up, just the day before the finish, they've got a very hard mountain stage.
Bob, we're talking about the time trial today. We call it the race of truth, and it's the easiest to understand. The best time wins the day and takes the first leader's jersey. But it is so hard, right?
It is absolutely a brutal effort required to actually win the time trial. Just to get up this hill on today's stage is going to be tough, but to win, to beat all of these great riders, is going to take a very special effort.
You'd have done quite well on this course, Paul, wouldn't you?
Well, I probably would have done quite well on the flat part of the course, but the difficult thing about the race here this afternoon is the riders have got the flat part to begin with, and sadly for them, they turn left at the end of the boulevard here, and they go up this nasty little climb called Telegraph Hill, and they finish in the shadow of Coit Tower, and that really is where it gets grippy. That's where the race will actually be won, in the last 400 or 500 meters.
Well, I'll tell you, it's quite fearsome because Coit Tower is just off our left shoulder here, and it's pretty high up, so it's going to be a tough one. But this is a great field, and here's Bob now to show us some of the more likely contenders.
The second annual Amgen Tour of California Tour of California.
Well, this is the time when the experts rather tarnish a little bit, because that's when we predict who will win this race in 8-day time. It's 650 miles, varied terrain. We have a prologue, we have another time trial. So, Bob Roll, who is going to win when we get to Long Beach?
I'm going to give you the answer in 2 words. One of them is a jeans company that was invented here. Levi Leipheimer is your overall Amgen Tour of California winner in about a week's time. He's got the motivation. The time trial a little bit shorter this year.
Yes.
I'm looking for Levi Leipheimer. He's my man.
He would have voted for Lance Armstrong, but of course he's retired. And Paul, how about yours?
Well, that's made it a little bit difficult for Bob since the retirement of Lance Armstrong. I'd have to say now, because Bob's taken Levi Leipheimer, Leipheimer is obviously the leader of Team Discovery Channel, so I'm going to be completely logical and go for George Hincapie.
Oh, boy, and that's a Brit telling you that. Well, I'm going abroad, I think. I wanted Stuart O'Grady, but the producer wouldn't let me have it, so I've had to settle for Fabian Cancellara. He is the World Time Trial champion, but he is a man who could win a race over 8 days. It's not that hard, after all. Who said that? Well, the atmosphere is building here. There really is a marvellous crowd just down from our left shoulder here. It is building over the last hour or so. Very shortly they'll be underway. There's 144 riders. They go at minute intervals. The last man to go will be Levi Leipheimer. Will he win? We're going to know pretty soon. Dave Zabriskie, he'll be a hot favourite. He starts midway through. See? On a spring-like day here in San Francisco, everybody is now ready to get down to the action in the second annual Amgen Tour of California. Where else could we be when you see a scene like this, as the riders now will come to the start line at 1 minute intervals. There are 144, there are 18 teams, there are in fact 9 Pro Tour teams. That's where we'll finish, the end of the road at 1.9 miles underneath Coit Tower. Here's where we are very, very briefly. This is our Garmin-sponsored Prologue map, as we're right down on the base by Fisherman's Wharf to start, then we're up on top for the finish. Well, we've told you everything we can about this race. We hope you now enjoy the coverage here on Versus. Paul and Bob are ready to go to the commentary box. Let's update you first of all on the story so far. And there he is, Ivan Basso, his first race since all of the trouble he had in the Tour de France when he wasn't allowed to start. His last big ride coming back in May last year. 27 to go. Ivan Basso got a big applause from the crowd, comes up to the finishing line with a time just over 5 minutes, 5 minutes 3.351. And 2 minutes behind him, Jens Voigt, who is many people's favourites here. He put in a huge effort, and in front of what is a huge crowd.
Absolutely superb, the crowd that has come out here to see this opening stage of the Amgen Tour of California. Jens Voigt, not a bad time, just going inside of 5 minutes.
So Voigt still up amongst the leaders here, with the 48th rider to go, Stuart O'Grady. Put in a huge effort as well, rode very solidly on the flat, and he really gave a very determined finish. He got inside 5 minutes with this ride at a 4:59, and he's up amongst the leaders. But the man who has presented us with the surprise was the 7th man to go, Jason Donald. Bob, what do you think of this performance?
This is a great ride. It's 3 seconds faster than Levi Leipheimer, who won the Prologue last year with the course record. New course record, and currently the best time, Jason Donald. That is a huge surprise for the rider from Slipstream.
Well, let's go back down to the start house now, because we are now live here with Tom Danielson. He's the 63rd man to go. He'll start just 2 minutes ahead of David Zabriskie. We are all reeling in the commentary box. Let's be honest, guys. The time by Jason Donald of 4 minutes 50 has set a course record right from the go. None of the big names are getting even close.
Well, let's not forget all the big names are stacked up at the back end of the starting list here this afternoon, as is always the case in a big international cycling event. But rolling away from the starting gate is a big name now. Tommy Danielson from Durango, Colorado. If anybody can knock Jason Donald off the top of the spot, it's got to be this young man, because Bob, he can go uphill fast.
He is a great climber. He's working on his time trial. He spent about 15 hours in the offseason in the wind tunnel, so his position is perfect. Let's see what his power is on the climb. So far, nobody's been able to match Jason Donald. Riders like Jens Voigt, Stuart O'Grady, and Ivan Basso not able to match the time by the young man on the Slipstream squad. A real surprise so far, but now that the big stars, the big guns are starting to fire from the field, we'll see if the Tommy D, this man right here, in the perfect aerodynamic position, can match that time of Jason Donald.
The Durango kid, as we call him, is in terrific form. He's riding very nicely on the flat. Remember, we call this the race of truth. Each of the 144 riders will start. The last 10 will start 2 minutes apart. Everybody else just 1 minute apart. We've got the bottom of approximately halfway on the flat. Then we make the left turn and grind our way up to the top of Coit Tower.
I think it's very interesting what Bob was saying just a little earlier about how much time Tommy Danielson has actually spent in the wind tunnel. This is probably one of the most important disciplines of the sport. There is no teammate here at all. You're riding completely on your own against the clock and, of course, against the elements. The most important thing to try and streamline is not really the bike, and these guys spend thousands of dollars on aerodynamic bicycles. It's actually the body, and they try and get themselves into much more aerodynamic positions as they can. And reputedly, one of the most aerodynamic positions in the whole of the peloton is this man, American time trial champion, silver medalist in the World Championships, hot favorite for today, Dave Zabriskie.
Well, he's got the pressure on. He's got a very early start in the time trial. Now, this is the choice of the team manager, and that'll be Bjarne Riis from CSC. Zabriskie goes number 65 here. You can probably hear the enormous cheer from the crowd, and it is a superb crowd here. They do understand they're cycling over on the west coast of the USA, Bob, and they'll cheer him all the way to the top.
I think if they understand the sport well, it's because of your commentary over the years, Phil. Dave Zabriskie from Salt Lake City, Utah. He's in the most aerodynamic position of any bike racer in the sport, and that's a perfect shot of that technique that he uses to go so quickly across the flats. He needs to climb as well also to win this time trial today.
To explain that a little bit more, Bob, if we can just have a look at Dave Zabriskie. You look at his back there, it's completely rounded. He's actually cutting straight through the wind and his arms are right out in front of him. And they're almost spreading the wind around him. That's what makes him go through the air at speeds approaching 35 miles an hour on the flat.
Oh, the long, lonely road ahead. Just turned 28 years of age now. Dave Zabriskie's won 9 races as a pro. The majority of them have been time trials. So Zabriskie and Danielson are on their way now as they head the way up to the top of the tower. A surprise in the making. Jason Donald holds best time in 4:50. Already a course record. We'll take a quick break and we'll find out how they get on when they reach the top. See you in a moment. Well, we're looking at Dave Zabriskie here now. He's still going along that long straight mile before he turns left up toward, there it is. A little bit of a wheel wobble there, Paul.
A little bit tricky, but all these riders are taking maximum risks to keep the speed as high as possible. Tommy Danielson is coming round the final few corners here, and he's looking at a very fast time. I make it about 4 3/4 minutes. He's not going to beat Donald at all, but this is already a very good time by the man from Durango.
Well, as he comes up towards the summit, he'll go over 5 minutes here. No, he won't. Just inside, 4:59.8. So that'll put him up amongst the leaderboard. But, Bob, we are still left here with an amazing ride by that young lad, Jason Donald.
A star in the making, Jason Donald beating Tom Danielson by 9 seconds. Dave Zabriskie flying across the flats. Doesn't seem to be going quite so well on this climb. We'll see what he does in just a few moments when he gets to the top of Coit Tower.
Well, the important thing about an individual time trial like this is you've got to dose your effort. It's so very violent, this effort at the start of the season, for these guys who've been doing long miles. 100 miles is their training regime in the early part of the year. But to violently explode, getting all of your energy out in just 5 minutes is a very difficult call. But this man certainly knows how to do that. Second in the World Championships time trial last year to his teammate Fabian Cancellara. Now Philly's starting to get onto the very difficult part of the course.
Well, you see his face. He's come over the steep bit. Now he's got to hang on. Watch his hand reach the centre of the handlebars. That's when he moves the gear shift and seeks for the higher gears. He's really giving it just, there's his gear shift change again as he comes off that right-hand bend. We should pick up the clock as we head up towards the line. It is still that ride of 4 minutes 50 seconds by 27-year-old Colorado rider Jason Donald that has stunned everybody. The stars are coming and going. It is looking very quick, this. He's about to, on schedule here, to rival the time of Donald as he gains searches for the leaders. He tries to get into it. There's the clock, 4 minutes 30. The time is 4:50 to beat. He's just on schedule. It's going to be a sprint to the line here. Zabriskie might be the first man to topple Donald, who was number 7 out of the start blocks, but it's a long way round this corner. I think he's going to get there. This is the champion of the time trial, David Zabriskie, still gritting his teeth as he gets desperately close. It has gone by. It has gone by. Zabriskie is now counting down for a high finish, but it won't be best time. He hits the line, 4:59, only 7th.
Phil, there are a lot of guys stopping the clock here this afternoon at 4:59. That seems to be the bar this afternoon. I tell you what, Jason Donald's time is really quite phenomenal. We're looking there at the man who is the time trial champion of the United States. But, Bob, it is a little bit difficult, the first explosive ride of the year, because after all, it is so hard all of a sudden taking the regime from 5,000 RPM to 7.
That's a very good point that you make. Here's a replay of Zabriskie's sprint to the line. Long early season. It's a huge season that these riders go through. The Tour de France many months away, trying to calculate your form to come right here in February. Maybe a bit of a gamble for the riders like Dave Zabriskie who want to peak a little bit later in the summer. And to beat the time by Jason Donald is going to be very tough for anybody in this field. What a great time by the young man on the Slipstream squad. Dave Zabriskie, a little bit of disappointment on today's stage.
Well, I have to say, Bob, and I hope I'm not wrong, I hope the judges have got the time right here, because he's not a rider we talk a lot about. In fact, we've never talked about Jason Donald, but if he's done this ride, hats off to him. And there's another young American there in Ben Jacquemain, also there in second place. Then comes Rory Sutherland, who we expect to do a good time, from Australia. Adam Hansen, Hilton Clark, another good rider. And then Jens Voigt, really the first big favourite name is Jens Voigt, 8.5 seconds. So as we look now, that's the situation. Of course, the big names, other big names, are still to come. As we take a break, who's going to topple this young man from Colorado? He's the leader, Jason Donald. Welcome back. This is the Bay here in San Francisco, and there's all sorts of storms are brewing out on the prologue of the Amgen Tour of California. The 1.9 miles time trial, there is a leader, and I must say we've never spoken of him before, Jason Donald of Team Slipstream, the 7th man of 144 to leave the start house, has set currently the best time, 4 minutes 50.497, and that is 2.5 seconds inside the best time recorded last year in this event. And the big stars are coming and going, and they are not approaching that time. Let's go to the start house. Maybe this man can do something. George Hincapie ready to go.
George Hincapie knows about time trialing. He suffered tremendously in the prologue of the Tour de France last year and finished second at a fraction of a second. But now he's out on course for 1.9 miles. I have a feeling, Bob, that the crowd are urging this man on to try and get the victory. He is oh so popular, isn't he, our George?
He's one of the biggest stars of American cycling and indeed the world of cycling. Big George Hincapie. His list of victories is almost endless. He's getting a little bit long in the tooth, 33 years of age. He's been a pro for 14 seasons. Big George Hincapie, and look at that perfect position. The prologue setting the tone for the rest of the bike race. It's very important to do a good effort here, give the team a little bit of morale, get a good result, and get out on the open road in tomorrow's stage number 1. But the prologue is a time trial effort, each man against the clock by himself.
Very difficult prologue to judge, actually, because you start off on this flat course at around about 35 miles an hour for maybe 2.5 minutes. Then you turn left and you've got to go to completely the other end of your gear ratio. You churn the gears down. You've got a big gear, a big sprocket at the back, almost like a mountain bike, and you've got to ride the last 2 or 3 minutes at 20 miles an hour.
Well, the last time George won a prologue time trial, you've got to go back to June 2005 when he won the prologue of the Dauphiné Libre race. That was a great race. He won the prologue, he won the last stage, which was a road race as well. But I think if anybody is going to challenge this amazing time, which has come from 27-year-old Colorado rider Jason Donald of Team Slipstream of 4:50, no one has so far come near him. Basso of 5:03, O'Grady of 4:59. Danielson and Zabriskie both 4:59. Let's go back down to the start house, because now it is Fabian Cancellara, the world time trial champion. He is starting, in fact, 2 minutes behind Hincapie. Charles Dion of Canada has gone off behind George, and now it's the turn of Cancellara.
Well, this man is wearing a very special tunic there. You see the rainbow bands around the middle. That signifies that he is the world champion at this discipline, the discipline of the individual time trial. Listen to the crowd roaring behind this man. And I suppose if anybody is going to knock that young man from Colorado off top spot, it is this man, because he is a specialist at the individual time trial. Bob, look at the speed he's gone down that first kilometer.
Absolutely flying on his machine in the start. The first few meters of this bike race, tactics a little bit important in a hill climb time trial. You want to conserve as much energy as possible for the climb. You can lose a lot more time in the last few meters than you can gain in the first few meters, but this man, Cancellara, starting very quickly.
Check out that time trial position. It's actually changed from last year. Look how he's got his arms right in front, slightly tilted up, a little bit like the position of Floyd Landis last year. He wasn't present the other night, Phil, at the team presentation, because, in fact, what he'd done was he'd spent his last few moments in the wind tunnel. George Hincapie now is on the hardest part of this individual prologue. He's on the climb, and you can see it really is starting to hurt.
Well, he was going pretty well for the moment. Now he's locked up a little bit, and he's sat back in the saddle to search for those gear levers to just change down and get the lower gear. You can hear the crowd are going to cheer George right to the top of this climb. He wants to get off to a good start. Long term, remember, this race is over 8 days. It's not all decided today. It's an 8-day race of some 650 miles, but time counts all of the way. Here's the world time trial champion. Last year he won 4 time trials in the season, including the world title. Back down to the start house, and this is Chris Horner. He used to be a member of the Webcor racing team, and that's a team based here in San Francisco, so he's got lots of friends. He's gone across now, Bob, to the Lotto team in Belgium.
He's had a couple of very successful seasons. After a long time in the United States, Chris Horner getting ready to start and underway on his Amgen Tour of California, 11th overall last year. No stage wins. I think he'd like to improve on that a lot and get his season off to a good start.
You can't say he didn't try to win a stage last year. He was on the attack on a number of occasions, always looking for an opportunity to get himself out of the pack. Here, he will try and lay his foundations, I think, for a victory. George Hincapie now is climbing up Telegraph Hill. He's looking for Coit Tower at the top of this climb. It is a very difficult one to do, and Hincapie, if anybody can put in the ride this afternoon, it's Big George.
Well, this is the struggle now, the battle of man and machine on the steep part of the climb. This is where the crowd have gone. Well, having said that, there's a massive crowd down on the flat road as well. The time all of the stars are shooting at is the incredible time by Jason Donald of Slipstream, 4:50. It looks as though George is going to be very close.
Going to be very close indeed. I make it 4:45 as he goes round that corner. The time to stop it at is 4:50. George Hincapie has gone outside that time as well. As Hincapie comes up to the line, will he beat the other favourites? Everybody else has recorded about 4:59. Hincapie records 4:57. 7th place currently for him, but still 6 seconds away from top spot.
Well, one has to question, is the timekeeper correct with the time of Jason Donald? I don't want to sound an absolute pessimist, Bob, but we've never spoken to this young man before, and he's beating the stars by many, many seconds. Let's have a look at the situation as we see it at the moment. Jason Donald, 4:50, which is a course record. Jacques Main is in 2nd place, Rory Sutherland 3rd. That's the way it's been for quite a long time now. But we've got George Hincapie sitting in 7th place, Zabriskie 9th, and Tommy Danielson in 11th. There's still some big names out there in Courtney, of course, including Levi Leipheimer. He'll be the last man to go. We'll take a short break. We're back on the slopes here of Coit Hill. It's probably a mountain now as far as the riders are concerned, and this is the world champion, Fabian Cancellara.
Cancellara now, I make this 4 minutes and 15 seconds, and you can still see the speed. Look at the power on this man as he climbs up to the top here. Let's not forget, not only is he world champion, he's also the winner last year of the great one-day classic Paris-Roubaix. 4 minutes and 30 seconds, Bob, and counting.
Just a few meters to go for Cancellara. He's on fastest time so far. Let's see what the sprint to the line will do for Cancellara, the current world time trial champion.
Well, let's see how he gets on against the time of Jason Donald. It stands at 4 minutes 50. It is a course record. It is going to be a very close thing, but it's gone. It's gone, and it makes the time of Donald look even more incredulous now, because he's now claimed the scalp of the world time trial champion.
Stopping the clock there, 4 minutes and 55 seconds. Cancellara was flying through that course there, looked very good over the flat, climbed strongly right to the end. He's going to try and wind himself down a fraction. As we keep saying, this is a violent effort. He needs to get the lactic acid out of those legs.
Chris Horner now climbing onto the bottom of the hill, shifting the gears. You can see him sit down on the saddle, reach for the shift of the gears. When you're out of the saddle and you try to shift, sometimes the chain will skip on the cog and you can lose some precious seconds that way. Also, you can crash yourself. Chris Horner, very good technique, climbing in quite a big gear there. Not noted as a time trialist, but this is a little bit different. Straight up to Telegraph Hill and Coit Tower.
The point you make there, last year you might think it's not dangerous to ride an individual time trial on your own, but last year, within meters of the finish line, the Australian Nathan O'Neill, a very good individual time trialist, actually crashed about 50 meters from the line when it looked like he was going to get himself the overall victory. And Phil, he would have actually been here at the 2nd Amgen Tour of California, but he had a nasty crash in Australia and fractured his hip just before traveling across here. He's going to have to recover for later on in the season. But I have to say, I don't really think Chris Horner is looking very comfortable with this effort.
No, he's struggling on this climb. You're absolutely right. I don't think he's going to challenge the leaderboard. You've got to get inside 5 minutes to even be on it right now. And Chris doesn't look as though he's got that. But once we get out onto the open highway over the next 7 days after this event, we're going to see a little bit of Chris Horner, I think. He loves this course. He loves the Tour of California. And he simply loves bike racing in the US, even though he earns his money these days racing in Europe. He's got a couple of bends to do, and then we'll get the clock on screen, but I think he's quite a way outside the best time now.
Well, he's looking at around about 4:45 at this point, and it's still an awful long way to go up to the finish line. You see them coming around that corner. It's taking most of these guys about 15 seconds to get to the line from there. He's recovered a fraction up towards the top. His team, by the way, as we look at Chris Horner, is Predictor Lotta. Now, Predictor is a pregnancy testing unit. I wonder if somebody could help predict who's going to win the time trial.
We'll find out. His time, they're very close to the time of Ivan Basso, who went a long time ago now, and that'll put him up amongst the top 20 in the field. Chance to recover there before he freewheels back down to the bottom. There's still a lot of riders to come in this race, and we've still, of course, got the top names to go at the very end of the field. But there's no doubt who the big surprise is as we look at the standings now. Jason Donald, Slipstream, is sitting there, 7th man to start. He is now top of the leaderboard and has been for a long time. And it could be an American one too, from literally unknown Americans as far as we are concerned. Jacques Main is in 3 seconds off the pace in second. Then comes the Australian Sutherland, the Swiss rider Cancellara, Adam Hansen, another Australian, and Ardea of Colombia. So it's an international lineup behind the man who is sending the big surprise message across the bay here in San Francisco. More big names to come. We'll take a short break. Can they challenge? Looking in the start house now, we've seen Bettini reach the top, and not a great time by him, but this is now Bobby Julich. He'll expect something special, but how are they going to cope with the time of Jason Donald?
Well, it's quite easy. They'll give you the explanation. You've got to come out to the starting ramp exceptionally fast. You've got to go up the hill a lot faster, Bob.
You got to go very fast up this hill. It looks as if Jason Donald has gone 3 seconds faster nearly than Levi Leipheimer, who won last year's prologue in the Amgen Tour of California. Bobby Julich, one of the big pre-race favorites. Team CSC from the United States sponsor, the teams from Denmark, a great international squad, and Bobby Julich would love to do something special to start his season, perhaps his last as a professional in the Amgen Tour of California here in San Francisco at the Prologue.
Well, the huge crowd out there to cheer Bobby Julich out onto this 1.9-mile course, just around about 3 kilometers. He knows all about individual time trialing. Phil, last year he was the winner of the opening prologue time trial of Paris-Nice. He's a very good time trialist, knows what he has to do here. He's got to go exceptionally fast out from the start. The important thing about a time trial like this, a short, violent effort, you've actually got to get to the start line with the engine already hot and sweating.
Well, if anybody can get close to Jason Donald, it's got to be Bobby Julich. This man is really experienced. He's 35 years of age now. 17 big wins in his career as a pro. And let's not forget, he finished 3rd in this race last year, the same way he finished in the Tour de France back in 1998. So he settled in. He's part of the CSC team, which is probably the #1 team. Well, officially it is the #1 team after the World Cup Pro Tour Series last year.
Just a quick look at the choice of equipment there. You can see at the front he's got a wheel with very deep sections. Those are made out of carbon fiber. That's to make the machine very aerodynamic at the front. The solid disc wheel at the rear, that's to reduce the turbulence at the back end of the machine. And if you can just see his chain ring there, it's an elliptical chain ring. Bob, why is that?
It presumably or theoretically, it eliminates the dead spot at the bottom, 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock at the top of the pedal stroke. You can see the circles being turned by Bobby Julich. The knee's very smooth. The ankle's very smooth, very supple, very limber, really agile. Bobby Julich across the flats going quite well. Looks to be conserving a little bit for that last climb. We'll see if that tactic works out.
And also to make him that little bit more aerodynamic, just look at that helmet. It has to conform to safety regulations, but it's actually molded to fit into each rider's individual body shape to help them cut through the air that little bit more easily.
Well, as we watch now Bobby Julich race off towards that left-hand turn, it'll start his way up the climb towards the summit. He's looking pretty smooth right now. This is the first time trial that he's ridden since the fateful one in the Tour de France last July when he crashed out of the Tour, and he's taken a while to recover from the knocks there. Apart from his broken wrist, it was I think a psychological blow to him as well. He looks pretty cool right now, and he's thinking of course the 8 days which lie ahead on the Amgen Tour of California right now.
Well, Bobby Julich is an experienced rider. He's been a professional since 1992, but the man who won this individual time trial last year must be wondering whether or not he's got what it takes to win this year. New team for him. He will be the last rider to start. He comes from not too far away from here in Santa Rosa, and he's warming up before the start. As I said, Phil, a little bit like NASCAR, a little bit like Formula One, IndyCar. You have to get the engine hot. That's what Levi Leipheimer is doing.
He's got about 6 minutes to go, Levi, and he knows now the time he's probably going to have to be aiming at was the rider Jason Donald, the 27-year-old from Colorado, who started 7th of the 144 riders, and no one has come remotely close to his time of 4 minutes 50.497 seconds.
Be a very difficult time to beat. Bobby Julich looked very comfortable, Bob, on the flat part of this course. Now he turns into what I call the second half of the race, the most difficult part when you change from 35 miles an hour to 15 miles an hour. This man, though, is also a name, Phil, who could win the time trial here. 3 times champion of the world, Michael Rogers from Australia.
Yes, the first Australian ever to win the gold medal in the time trial, and the first year, of course, it became because of the disqualification of the British rider David Miller. But now we have to say that this man is going to concentrate more on the time trial towards the end of the week rather than this one. He's not really a prologue specialist, but we'll see what he can turn out. The bands around his helmet indicating he was a past world champion. And he lost the title last time around to Fabian Cancellara, who finished with a 4 minutes 55 second ride. A very good ride, keeps him right up amongst the leaderboard, but still 5 seconds slower than Jason Donald.
Well, Bob, you're from Oakland, California originally. What's it like? You're just sitting here in the heart of San Francisco looking at this crowd.
When we see Bobby Julich coming to the finish line, I can remember training on these roads year in and year out as an early professional, early in my career. I don't believe I ever saw this many people at a bike race in those days. That just goes to show you how the sport has grown here in the United States. Unbelievable crowd, reaching 300,000 people according to the San Francisco Police Department.
Well, Bobby, watch out here, because Bobby Julich is the next man to be scalped by Jason Donald, because he's not going to reach the finish in 4 minutes 50 seconds, which makes the time of Donald now even more surprising, I think. Julich also slipping away from the best time.
Well, the time to beat has gone by. 4:50 is the fastest time recorded here this afternoon. Julich is accelerating over the last 30 or 40 meters. He knows he has to stop the clock, but he's stopping the clock in a fairly lowly 20th place. 5 minutes and 3 seconds for Bobby Julich.
Well, okay, Bobby is in and in the start. How should be, and there he is, Levi Leipheimer, the last man to go now. He'll chase Michael Rogers 2 minutes behind him. He's on the countdown, and he knows now he's probably the only guy left who can match the time of Jason Donald, the slipstream professional from Colorado, 7th to start. Now we're looking at the rider 144th to start. Nobody has matched the time of 4 minutes and 50 seconds.
He's looking nervous, he's looking very concentrated, eyes slightly hidden behind those dark glasses, looking up the road, looking for a bit of inspiration now, Phil. He knows what to do. He has the advantage of knowing the time he has to complete this course in. The time he's looking at is 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Just listen to that crowd. They are getting right behind Levi Leipheimer, the winner of this stage last year.
Well, you can hear the crowd for yourself as he gets all of the cheers. He won this race 1 year ago, this particular stage. He went on to finish nearly on the podium as he now races away down the, what will we call it, the home straight before the left turn up Telegraph Hill. And the man who is still sitting biting his nails is Jason Donald of Slipstream, because here's the man still with that best time of 4:50, and Jacques Maines, another young American, 3.5 seconds behind him. Where are all the stars, or are they still racing? We'll know in just a moment. As well for the time trial to come later on in the week. Leipheimer here now, the last man who could dislodge a Jason Donald, as the sun's still high in the sky here in San Francisco.
Levi Leipheimer down low in the aerodynamic bars, much like a downhill skier, and that's where they were developed in Idaho by Boone Lennon many years ago, used by Greg LeMond. Now everybody uses them, and Levi Leipheimer trying to get up this hill, going pretty reasonable tempo. A little bit of tactics involved in this particular time trial because it finishes with such a steep climb up to the top of Coit Tower. Here's Michael Rogers, world time trial champion 3 times in his career, climbing up to Coit Tower.
Well, Rogers, Phil, is looking very strong on the climb. Look at the size of the crowd. They're phenomenal. It is amazing. I think this year it's really ramped up against last year. As we were saying, 300,000 people are watching this bike race physically at the side of the road this afternoon. That really is Super Bowl proportions in cycling.
And in a few minutes' time, they could be hoisting a new name to the top of American cycling, because Jason Donald, there's only 2 men now who can challenge his time. And here's one of them, and looking by the way he's climbing, I don't think he's a challenger at all. The former world time trial champion, Michael Rogers, will have a clock on him very soon. But I would say he's on a ride outside of 5 minutes, only just, but that looks likely.
Well, Michael Rogers knows what he has to do. He's a long way, I think, off the mark as well. He's using a massive gear here. He's been in the saddle for just 4.5 minutes, Bob. you can see he hasn't really got the explosive pedaling style necessary to win this short prologue.
Coming close to the time already with quite a few meters to go. Mick Rogers of Jason Donald. Fabian Cancellara, we saw just a little while ago, sprinting at this part of the course, and the time just about to go away from Mick Rogers to challenge a time with Jason. And Jason Donald, this is going to be an incredible surprise if his time holds up. One man after Rogers with a chance. Levi Leipheimer still out on course.
Well, it's still a very good ride from Michael Rogers because he wasn't expected to do a great prologue, but he has. He's 11th, 4:58. That all's well for the time trial to come later on in the week. There is now only one man left on course. He's last year's winner, Levi Leipheimer. He started 2 minutes behind Rogers. He's the only one now to spoil an incredible day for Jason Donald.
But listen to the crowd getting behind this man. He is oh so popular. He lives just across the Golden Gate Bridge, a little bit further up the highway in Santa Rosa, California. And he wants to win this. He won it last year, but this race is a race that is decided by seconds. The whole of the Amgen Tour of California will be decided by half a minute or a minute. But today, it's all about seconds, Bob, and even a fraction of a second is all he needs to win. Look at his face. He's hurting.
Fantastic technique put in here by Levi Leipheimer. He's given everything he got. Look at that face. He is gritting his teeth, trying to get to the finish line and match that time of Jason Donald, a 4:50. He went a little bit slower last year. He did a 4:53. That might be the only man capable of getting around the man on top of the leaderboard. What an incredible surprise that would be.
I make him about 7 seconds quicker than Rogers. That will be very, very close indeed to race victory. But he is absolutely about the same time here of Jason Donald. It'll all go down to the sprint from Levi Leipheimer as he heads up towards the finish.
Well, it's looking good. 4 minutes, 20 seconds now. Lifts the bars. He's fighting with his machine. He knows the time he has to be. He's now getting into the zone where his body is saying, stop, please let me have a rest. But you can't. You have to keep pushing now. He comes around the corner, 4:35. Phil, it's going to be ever so close.
Leipheimer around the bend. This is going to be so tight here. Jason Donald isn't the winner yet as he now sprints for the line. The banner is just ahead. 4:50 is the time to beat. He comes up to the line now. 4:49. The last man has done it. Levi Leipheimer with an incredible ride and almost an identical wave of 12 months ago has won the time trial by tenths of a second.
Well, I cannot believe it. He knew what he had to do. He got the engine hot before the start, but it was so hard. The pressure has been there since very early this morning. He knew he had to come out and do that time, and he's beaten the best time by 1.5 seconds, 1.4 to be exact. And the smile has not yet come to his face, but the performance there, the grimace there, was there, Bob.
What an incredible effort by Levi Leipheimer. He knew he had to go at least 3 seconds faster than he went last year just to win the stage, and that is an incredible result by Levi Leipheimer, getting to the top of Coit Tower, Telegraph Hill, just a little bit over a second faster than Jason Donald, and what a shock that would be. It's shocking that he'll finish second.
Well, you've got to feel sorry for Jason Donald because he's held the lead from the 7th rider till the 144th man to start. He had 4:50.497, and now Leipheimer has just come up with a 4 minutes 49. As you say, Paul, a beating of around about 1.5 seconds. I think we can have a look again, that big effort by Leipheimer, because that was huge. And all the pressure of the day, all of the other stars came and went. They couldn't do it.
This was the finish of Levi Leipheimer just a few moments ago. Now look at the way he's battling with the machine there. He looks down and looks at the gears. He's got his mouth starting to open, but in fact his body at this point is starting to go into oxygen debt. You can see the grimace now. That looks a little bit like the face of Lance Armstrong many years ago. He knows the time to beat and he lunges for the line and stops the clock 1.5 seconds faster than the man who had led since he started right at the very start, Phil. 7th rider to go, Jason Donald.
Well, there he is now, surrounded by the press, and it looks now that he goes to his hometown tomorrow. Let us not forget that as we race now on the opening stage of the Tour of California, and he's got himself into the leader's jersey again. Well, there is the beautiful view here as we look down across the bay, and there is the result of the prologue time trial. Same winner as a year ago, Levi Leipheimer, the USA claiming the top 3 places. That in itself not a big surprise, but the second 2 names are Jason Donald getting second and Benjamin Jacques Main taking third. Then it's an international result. Rory Sutherland of Australia, Fabian Cancellara of Switzerland, Adam Hansen of Australia. And I think we can show you a little bit further down too. All of these rides conceding quite a few seconds to the overall situation today. And the world champions have come and gone. There's a bit further down for you. Ardea, once a winner of the Tour of Britain a couple of years ago from Colombia. He's in 7th place. Hilton Clark, another Aussie, he's in 8th. George Hincapie there again, but conceding 8 seconds today. Ben Day, time trial champion of Australia in the past, he's in 10th. And Ryder Hesjedal and Michael Rogers, world champion in the past, finishing in 12th place. This has been an incredible race in many, many ways, and we're not talking about the men we thought we would be talking about as we face up now to 7 full days on the open highways of California. We're talking of a young man who's made his big name today at 27 years of age, Jason Donald. Ivan Basso making his comeback. He's in 23rd place, 14 seconds off the pace. He won't be too worried about that, of course, as he now faces up to a full season here, despite all the controversy which still surrounds the man on the Discovery Channel team. Well, we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll introduce you to the premier winners of the prizes today, and we'll try and grab a word with them as well. But there is the man who takes it out in the end, Levi Leipheimer, the only one who could stop a perfect day for Jason Donald. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. It's all done and dusted in the end. The name of Levi Leipheimer sits on top of the winners board of the prologue of the time trial here in the Tour of California. But what a great performance by Jason Donald and Jack Maines, the two young Americans there, nearly stealing the day. All of the other big names in the Tour of California having to slip a little bit down the list.
What an amazing finish. It was a lot of pressure, I think, on the shoulders of Levi Leipheimer. Brand new team for him, moving back to Team Discovery Channel after riding for Team Gerolsteiner for a couple of years. Tommy Danielson was right up there in 17th place. Dave Zabriskie a little bit disappointing in 14th, but I have to say it was all about the final few minutes because that was a great ride.
It most certainly was. Let's remind ourselves of just what a great day it turned out in the end to be for Levi Leipheimer. Ivan Basso, his first race since all the controversy of not being allowed to start the Tour de France last year. He shows himself to be a little bit race rusty. He comes in a time just over 5 minutes. It keeps him up in the top half of the field by the end of the day.
Next man to come out was Jens Voigt. What a strong man, very popular with the crowd, very aggressive. He may well not have put in the fastest performance in the individual time trial, but he was inside of 5 minutes.
Here's Stuart O'Grady from Australia. A little bit rusty himself, perhaps. Out on the open road now. Did a good effort there, climbing up to Coit Tower on the top of Telegraph Hill. Not a bad effort. Fabian Cancellara looked to be the next man who might be able to get past Jason Donald, the early race leader, but not even the world time trial champion could beat Donald, even though Cancellara put in a good effort to stay there about top 5.
Chris Horner coming out, he also rode fairly well over the course, but these riders laying the foundations of what each and every one of them, Phil, hopes is going to be an overall victory. Even George Hincapie couldn't move anybody off the top slot, but he rode aggressively to the top of the climb here at Telegraph Hill. He too failed to stop the clock in the best time.
Another start there by George, as I must say, Paul, the object of the prologue time trial is to try not to concede too much time. And this is the rider who set the trend and came up with the best time, and Jason Donald did the ride of his life. He left number 7 out of the start house of the 144 and stunned everybody with a straight into a course record of 4 minutes and 50 seconds.
Had to wait a long time because he was the 7th rider on the starting list to start. He had to basically wait for the whole of the afternoon to see if anybody was going to beat his incredible time of 4 minutes and 50 seconds. And it was a long wait for him there, Phil, in the starting gate because he had to wait until the very last man came out to play. And that man was called Levi Leipheimer.
Well, I really thought he'd done enough to win it by the end of the day. The stars came and went, his tongue out there, but then came the last man to go. 2 minutes ahead of him had started the former world champion Michael Rogers, and Leipheimer, by the time he got up the climb, he was talking of the blink of an eyelid between victory and finishing in 2nd place. And can you imagine what it must have been like to be Jason Donald, just wondering if he was going to win.
Last man to start, fastest man to do the course, but Levi Leipheimer requiring every bit of effort he could produce. and all of his experience over the years. He won this race 365 days ago. 1 year ago, he knew he had done it right then. What an exciting race, and you could just see a picture of his wife Odessa cheering for Levi. What an exciting finish it was. It took the whole of the event to pass Jason Donald.
Well, of course, let's not forget, Bob, it took all of his experience as well to know exactly how to dose his effort over the flat part of the course to begin with, and then the final few meters, because it was Phil in the last 100 meters that he won this race.
Well, this is the first race back in the colours of the Discovery Channel team for Levi, and it's a winning start because last year he was racing on the German Gerolsteiner team. Before that it was Rabobank, and before that he was actually with the Discovery Channel team alongside Lance Armstrong. But that was a big result, and I think a bit of relief all round by the big names of the Amgen Tour of California, because it looked for a while, an awful long while, that they were going to all fall foul to Jason Donald from Colorado, and that would have been a terrific start for the Jason's team Slipstream. There's the result, 1.4 seconds in the end. Jason Donald in second place. Benjamin Jacques Main is in third place, Rory Sutherland fourth, Fabian Cancellara, the world champion, fifth, and Adam Hansen in sixth. Leipheimer's the man that goes home tomorrow wearing the leader's jersey. The question is, will he still be the leader when he arrives in Santa Rosa? Looking further down there, Mauricio Ardila, once the winner of the Tour of Britain. He looks as though he's finding his form. He also finished ninth in the Tour of Spain. Hilton Clark in there too from Australia. The Australians in force here in the United States this week. George Hincapie, ninth. He was a big challenge in this race last year, slipped away a bit on this occasion, 8 seconds off the final winning time. And looking down the list there too, you've got Michael Rogers, the 3-time former world champion, just getting in the top 20. Jens Voigt, always a great competitor, won the Tour of Germany last year. He's in 13th place. Zabriskie, 10 seconds off the pace as well. Well, this has been a great start to the race, Bob. A quick comment from you about Jason Donald.
It's been a fantastic start to the race, and what an upset of the status quo it would have been if Jason Donald had have taken the lead, and he did lead the race throughout the start, but it was Levi Leipheimer just barely getting around him by 1.5 seconds at the end. Jason Donald's got to be heralded as a new star of cycling.
Absolutely, but he was beaten in the end by the experience of Levi Leipheimer, who has got it. As we don't forget, for more information, by the way, there's the address to go, www.amgentourofcalifornia.com. That's where you get all of the updates. And remember too that tomorrow we're out on the open highway. Stay with us here on Versus, and we go from Sausalito across to Santa Rosa, and that is where this man lives, and he's going to be pretty determined when he races down there. Well, it was a great day. 300,000 people enjoyed the Amgen Tour of California. Stay with us now for the rest of this week. For Bob Roll, Paul Sherwin, I'm Phil Liggett saying until tomorrow.